There are NBA superstars, past and present, who always have phenomenal regular seasons, but in the playoffs, they struggle to live up to the moment. There are other players who, during the regular season, they're great, but when the playoffs roll around, they turn into a whole different animal. In this video, we're going to take a look at those players who embrace the playoff atmosphere and elevate their game to new heights. Also, keep in mind, I will avoid talking about the obvious choices like MJ or LeBron. Everyone already knows how good they are, so let's take a look at some other guys. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and without further ado, let's begin. Rajon Rondo. Remember all those years when people were saying, "Playoff Rondo has arrived"? I wanted to take a look at that theory and see if it's backed up by the numbers, and yes it is. In almost every season of his career, Rondo's playoff stats are significantly better than his regular season numbers. The most notable example being in 2009. With Kevin Garnett sidelined the entire playoffs due to injury, Rondo nearly averaged a triple-double. And in some games, he was carrying the Celtics to victory, controlling the tempo of the game, playing lockdown defense. He was doing it all. This was when the term Playoff Rondo was born. Apparently, it was coined by his teammate Kendrick Perkins. Every time Rondo made a great play in that playoff run, he would yell, "Playoff Rondo!" Rondo continued his playoff excellence as the years progressed. In the 2012 playoffs, he rose to the occasion once again, even scoring a career-high 44 points against the Heat. In that run, he averaged nearly 6 more points a game compared to his regular season. It wasn't just in Boston either. Later in his career with the Pelicans, he had a decent season, but when the playoffs began, in the first round against the heavily favored Portland Trail Blazers, Rondo averaged over 13 assists for the series, and spearheaded his team into a shocking sweep. His leadership, especially on defense along with Drew Holiday, they suffocated the Blazers' backcourt and shut them down. Dame had the worst series of his entire career. Even on the Lakers by 2020, in the twilight years of his career, he still proved he could live up to the moment come playoff time. Hakeem Olajuwon. Hakeem earned a plethora of regular season awards: MVP, 2 Defensive Player of the Years, 12-time All-NBA. Everyone knows how great he is. However, even with all those accomplishments, every time the playoffs start, he turns it up another notch. In terms of career stats, he averages 4 more points a game in the playoffs than the regular season. But it's not just that. In almost every matchup against any opposing superstar, Hakeem rarely ever gets outplayed. For example, in the 1994 and 1995 playoffs, the 2 years the Rockets won the championship, Hakeem outplayed Charles Barkley in 2 different series, Kevin Johnson, Karl Malone in 2 different series, Patrick Ewing, and dismantled David Robinson in the year he won MVP. What people don't know is that he's done it many other years too. As a sophomore in 1986, Hakeem exploded onto the scene and led the Rockets on an improbable run to the finals, as he annihilated the heavily favored Lakers. Even in the years the Rockets were losing in the first round, Hakeem still balled out like crazy. Some of his numbers he put up were just absolutely ludicrous, even if his team loses. Kawhi Leonard. I feel bad for Kawhi. Despite all the load management over the years, he still cannot stay healthy when it matters most. Regardless, when he is healthy, he's arguably the greatest playoff performer of the last couple seasons if you take into account both ends of the floor. He's also one of a handful of superstars whose efficiency increases during the playoffs. Let's compare his numbers starting in the 2015-16 season, the first year he was an All-Star. Just look at these stats. Kawhi is freaking insane. Then you add on the things that don't show up in the box score, like his championship-level defense. It's crazy when you think he came into the league as solely a defensive-minded player, but developed into this calculated, meticulous, lethal offensive powerhouse. I don't remember a single playoff series where he actually struggled. I guess there was that series against Denver in the bubble. He had a mediocre series by his standards, including 2 horrific games that cost them the series. Besides that anomaly, you can always expect Kawhi to show up and show out, if he's not injured. It's looking more and more likely he's got degenerative knees, and he might not ever be fully healthy again. Nikola Jokic. I feel like Jokic's lack of playoff success has been a thorn on his side. I mean, it's not even his fault. His team has gotten numerous injuries over the years to their second and third best players, and in the years he did win MVP, his teams got knocked out early. That shouldn't take away how good he's been on an individual level though. The thing with Jokic is that during the regular season, you can tell he's making a concerted effort to share the ball, to get his teammates involved. This can lead to the false impression that Jokic is passive or soft. But that's far from true. In the playoffs, he has the killer mentality to take over a game by scoring if he needs to. That's what separates him from other pass-first players. He has the ability to take over a game by scoring. He's been one of the league's most efficient scorers, and in the playoffs, he's still so efficient, while scoring on a much higher volume. On average in the playoffs, he takes 5 more shots per game compared to his regular seasons, with an extra 6 points per game. Of course, he probably needs to show better playoff results if he wants to be labeled as an all-time legendary playoff performer. Reggie Miller. When you look at highlights from the 1990s, the first guy you'd see is Michael Jordan. The second guy is probably Hakeem Olajuwon or Karl Malone, but then it's probably Reggie Miller. In fact, I'd go as far as to say that Reggie has had more iconic playoff moments than anyone besides Michael Jordan during the 90s. Reggie had such an illustrious career, many great regular seasons, but above all else, he's known to be a playoff performer. Some of the greatest moments in NBA history involved Reggie Miller. 25 points in the fourth quarter in 1994, 8 points in 9 seconds against the Knicks in 1995, 41 points at the age of 35. Game winner after game winner, Miller's playoff resume rivals that of an all-time great, even if his regular season resume doesn't make him seem like one. His longevity stood out. Even in his mid-30s, he was dropping 40 points, dismantling defenses, averaging 25 to 30 points in different series. Even in 2001 and 2002, when the Pacers had no shot of advancing past the first round, Reggie still went off and still looked like the best player on the court. In 2001, he went toe-to-toe with Allen Iverson, the MVP of the league, and held his own. Unfortunately, he was never able to capture that championship. Playing in the same era as Michael Jordan will do that for you. Jamal Murray. Murray is a good regular season player, but he legitimately turns into a superstar in the playoffs. It happens in every postseason he's been in. The dude always elevates his game to the level of his opponents. Look at the 2019 playoffs. There's no question Damian Lillard is a better player than him. Yet Murray rises to the occasion and matched him almost point for point. In the 2020 playoffs, Murray averaged a whopping 26.5 points a game on ridiculous shooting efficiency. In that first round series against Utah, Donovan Mitchell averaged over 36 points a game and shot the lights out. And yet, Murray was basically just as good. They both had 2 games of scoring 50+ points each. It was one of the greatest duels in NBA history. Then, against the Clippers, he clinched the series with a 40-point performance in Game 7. And even after sitting out an entire season with a torn ACL, he came back, and now continued where he left off. It's shocking how his game reaches new heights in the playoffs, considering he's never even made an All-Star team or All-NBA team in his career. But if you just watch his playoff games, you would think he's a top 10 player. Jimmy Butler. You saw this coming. When it comes to Jimmy Buckets, he's a guy who, during the regular season, he's still a great player, but playoff Jimmy is something else. I've never seen a guy who's probably like a top 10 to top 15 player in the regular season, but he transforms into arguably the best player in the league during the playoffs. He's done it in multiple postseasons now. For example, in terms of game score, among the top 50 highest individual game scores in playoff history, he holds 5 of them. For comparison, MJ has 6 of the top 50, and LeBron also has 6 of the top 50. Imagine being in the same company with the 2 greatest players of all time. It's just unfathomable how much he elevates his game in the playoffs. But what stands out more is that Butler registered all those games as a member of the Miami Heat. Now, in the past, on the Bulls and other teams, Butler has been great in the playoffs too, but he wasn't anywhere near the level he is right now in Miami. The fact that he's doing this while approaching his mid-30s, it just shows how much work he's put in. Despite his age, he's still arguably the most conditioned athlete in the entire league. He seemingly never gets tired. And it's not just his offensive production either. Defensively, he takes on the task of guarding the opposing team's best wing players every single night. Butler loves taking on the challenge and embraces it like no other. And that's all, folks. Let me know in the comment section if you can think of any other players who elevate their game so much in the playoffs. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. And of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.